Hello friends. Today I'm actually going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be doing my very first tag video. So I'm going to be doing the New Year New Reading tag, and it was created by the Moonlight Library, and I will have the original video linked down in the description for you, as well as the questions if you want to do this yourself. Okay, so there are 8 questions. I have them here on my phone. And the first question is, how many books or pages do you want to read in 2021? I have set my Goodreads goal to be 30 books, which is the most books I have ever set my goal to. I've actually, including last year in 2020, the last 3 years, my goal has only been 12 books. That's 1 book a month. And I think I've mentioned this before, but last year was the only year I actually made it to or past my goal. In 2018, I guess was 3 years ago, when I first did the Goodreads challenge, again it was 12, I only read 6 books. 6. In 2019, I almost made it with 11 books. And then last year I surpassed it with 27 books. So I'm thinking that if I can, without trying or having a goal of that many books, if I can read 27 books in a year just because, I think I can probably push myself to read 30 books. So that is my goal for 2021. Question 2 is, do you want to change how you obtain books in any way? Before last year, I only ever read books that I bought, like physical books. I've had my Kindle for many years, and I will on occasion read books on my Kindle, like strictly just my Kindle. I buy an ebook and read it, or most of the ebooks that I have on there actually are free books or 99-cent books that I get through BookBub, and I've had them for many, many years, but I just don't remember, I guess, or think about reading them. And then last year, I got back into having a library card. It's also when I discovered Scribd, and so while I don't have any goals as to how I want to get my books, or I want to read more ebooks or more library books or more Scribd audiobooks, I do want to keep track of how I'm using each of those services to see if they're even worth me having. Like, I do, of course, pay for Scribd every month, and I do pay for my library card because my city doesn't have a library itself, so I have to use the closest city to me that has a library, and since I'm out of town, I have to pay for it. And so I do want to keep track of and see if those are even worth me paying for, to see how much I'm using them. And then maybe next year I'll be able to tell you whether or not I want to change how I get my books, if that makes any sense. So potential goals next year, but this year we're just trying to see if there needs to be a change or if I want to change them. Okay, question 3 is, do you want to change the ways or places that you read? I generally only ever read at home, and it's usually always, I prefer to read at a table. I like to have something to hold my book and prop it up. If I'm not at a table, I'll read in my lap sometimes, but as far as where, other than at a table, not really, or at home, I don't just carry around books with me. Not that I really leave the house all that much anyway, but even if I do, I'm going out to do something, so I'm not really going to be reading or bringing a book to read for any reason because I'm out with a purpose. So I'm going to say no. Question 4 is, do you have any genres you'd like to explore? I read my first, how many thrillers did I read? I think I read one thriller. I don't know if you count, some people count Blake Crouch's novels as thrillers, and I did read one of those, and then I read an actual domestic thriller last year as well. It's like my first, maybe only the second or third, depending on how you classify Blake Crouch, thriller I've ever read, and I seem to really enjoy them, and so maybe I'd like to get more into thrillers, different kinds of thrillers. I've only read one thriller that didn't have any kind of like science fiction or fantasy element to it. The only other one I read was Behind Her Eyes. I forget the author, but it did have that slight science fiction twist to it. So I don't know if that's why I liked it so much or what. So maybe I'd like to explore true thrillers this year to see if I really do like them. Nope. Hold on, my phone went to sleep. Number 5 is, are there any authors you want to try or read more of? So last year I actually did read my very first Brandon Sanderson, and I can assure you it will not be my last. I read Elantris, which I think is his first and maybe only fantasy book. I think he does mostly sci-fi, which I'm all on board for, and I am, yes, Brandon Sanderson for sure. Number 6 is name some books on your 2021 TBR. So I actually have a separate video on that, but I do have 2 that I can add here because they were not on that video. That video is my pan list, the books that I've owned for a while that I'm reading. But these 2 I just bought. And the first one is Rhapsodic. It's the first book in, I want to say it's a trilogy, I'm not sure. But my cousin wanted us to do a buddy read of that series, and so I bought the first book. I didn't want to buy all of them in case I didn't like it, but as far as I know, because I haven't read it or started it yet, that'll actually be my next read after I finish what I'm on right now. But as far as I know, in this world, women have been disappearing and they suddenly reappear with babies. And there's a fairy king who strikes bargains, does favors for people at a price, of course, and he is trying to enlist this girl to help him figure out what's going on, like why these women are disappearing and why they're coming back with babies and what's going on. So that is the first book that I just recently bought and that I will be reading very soon this year. And then, because I don't like to pay for shipping, I bought a second book, and that is a book that I've been wanting to read since it came out recently, and that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is a story about a woman who has committed suicide, and she doesn't go straight to wherever they go in this world after death. I don't know. She goes to the Midnight Library where she gets to look through different versions of her life based on different choices she could have made to see how different her life could have been, to see if it's all worth it, I guess. So I'm very interested in that. I loved his book, The Humans, which I also read last year. That was my first Matt Haig last year, so I guess another author I would be looking forward to reading more of would be Matt Haig as well. But I really liked The Humans, and so I'm looking forward to The Midnight Library. Number 7 is name some new releases you're looking forward to. I honestly don't know how people know what books are coming out in the year until they're coming out like that month or within a couple of months. Where do you find those things? I don't know. But the only new release that I know of right now is the 3rd book in the, I think it's called the Cursebreaker series. I'm not sure, but it's the last book that goes with A Curse to Dark and Lonely that I just finished. And so I am very much looking forward to reading that, and that has not come out yet, but it is within like the next week or so. So that's a new release, right? And I'm looking forward to it. It's the only answer I have for that one because I have no idea how you find out what books are going to be coming out in a year. Where do you find those things? And the last question is number 8, and it is, tell us one bookish thing you'd like to accomplish in 2021. Well, other than reading the most books I've ever read in 1 year, I would really like to completely read every book that I own and just let me start fresh next year as far as like my buying habits and things like that. I only have, I think right now I have like 18 left, not including the 2 that I just recently bought, but so 20, I guess. And if my goal is 30, that should very much be doable. I should be able to finish all the books that I own, and still leaves me, 10 books to read, like from the library or off script or something like that. So I think that it's doable, and that would feel really, really nice. That would be a great accomplishment for me. So we'll see how it goes, but I hope so, and I think that it's absolutely doable. All right, well, that was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed doing this. If you are still here, I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that means I will see you soon.